Good evening, this is Left, Right and Centre. I'm Nidhi Razdan. Well, quite an unprecedented day today as the Supreme Court in a marathon 4-hour-long hearing heard arguments on the 59,000 crore Rafale Jet Deal from both the government and the petitioners who wanted to be probed. In the end, the court has reserved its order. The process itself, something we've never seen before, a defence deal being questioned and scrutinised in this way by the country's top court. Well, this is what happened today. The government opposed a review of the deal for the 36 Rafale fighter jets by the court, saying that only experts can undertake such an exercise. The bench, headed by the Chief Justice, asked the government if India had a sovereign guarantee from France for the deal. The Attorney General said no, there was only what's called a letter of comfort from France. This is because, and this is important because the petitioner Prashant Bhushan had pointed out that without this guarantee from France, the Law Ministry in fact had asked who would be responsible if Dassault does not deliver on this deal. The court also said the pricing of the jets will not be debated until the court is convinced that it should be placed in public domain. Defending the secrecy clause, Attorney General K.K. Venugopal said that we've been saying that even Parliament has not been told about the complete cost of the jets and that the price that was revealed in Parliament was not of the fully loaded aircraft. Prashant Bhushan, however, questioning that, saying that how can revealing the price of the aircraft compromise national security? It was disclosed in Parliament twice. Then, in an unprecedented move, the court sought the help of Air Force officers, saying that it would want to hear from an Air Force officer and not from an official of the Ministry of Defence on the issue. So, within an hour or so, we saw Deputy Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal V.R. Chaudhary and two other officers appearing in the Supreme Court and saying that no new aircraft has been inducted in the Air Force since 1985. This entire hearing went on, as we said, for 3 hours and 50 minutes, for nearly 4 hours today, at the end of which the Supreme Court has reserved its order, which means we really don't know when the final verdict will come. Will the court finally order the Rafale Jet Deal to be probed or not? We'll have to wait and see. But the question we're asking tonight is whether everything in this deal is above board, as the government claims, or whether there are serious question marks, as has been reported for some time now. Ajay Shukla is here in the studio with us. He's, of course, a leading defence analyst and journalist and someone who has broken quite a few important stories on the Rafale issue in the last few days. We also have Aishwarya Mahadev of the Congress joining us. Senior journalist Neerja Chaudhary with us as well. Tonight we'll be joined by the BJP in just a moment. Ajay, let's look at what happened today in court. Just the optics of it. The fact that you have the Supreme Court scrutinizing a huge defence deal between two countries in this way. Have you ever seen anything like this? Air Force officers coming to the court. Have you ever seen anything like this?
Well, it's reminiscent in a way of the General V.K. Singh controversy in that court case, though that was not a defence deal. That was to deal with even more sensitive subject, which is civil-military relations. But yes, this was remarkable. The Chief Justice himself, two senior judges, devoting 4 hours, the entire day, from the time court convened to the time it finished. No other case was heard. They just heard this particular case. They went into complete details. Everybody who wanted to speak, and there were a range of petitioners, it was a grouped petition. So there were a range of petitioners, all of them had their say, all of them got to speak. The judges were listening, as did the government. As did the government. The government, I have to say, was far less effusive. They were confining themselves to the script. They had submitted a written response on Monday. That was what they confined themselves to, and they basically said that there's secrecy around the price and there's secrecy around the capabilities, and we're not going to talk about that. So that left very little for them to say. So it was mainly the petitioners' day today.
Can I ask you then, why is this sovereign guarantee by France, which everyone is talking about today, so important? This came out in the court today when the court asked, has France given you a guarantee on this deal? And the Attorney General said, no, it hasn't. It's given us what is called a letter of comfort, which essentially means tomorrow if something happens, if Dassault backs out, France is not responsible. And France, according to reports, was actually trying to pass the buck onto the company rather than take on the responsibility. What does that actually mean? What is a letter of comfort? It sounds very sad.
Intergovernmental agreement, if you don't have the benefits of a government-to-government agreement, which is a sovereign guarantee and nothing less, then it's an intergovernment agreement with all the drawbacks but none of the positives. It's an intergovernment agreement where Delhi and Paris appear to have agreed to do the deal, and then Delhi after that has been palmed off to do the negotiations with Dassault. So to that extent, it doesn't work. A letter of comfort is of no use at all. In case we go into arbitration, we will have to go to the Committee of Arbitration in Geneva. It is not be arbitrated on an Indian court. So to that extent, it's a letter of no comfort, I would say. But you know, here's the other thing that was very vociferously argued by Prashant Bhushan, and that was that the intergovernmental agreement, there are three clear sort of circumstances in which an intergovernmental agreement can be signed, and those circumstances are laid out in the Defence Procurement Procedure of 2013, which governs this procurement. Not one of them are met in the Rafale case. So Prashant Bhushan was also arguing, why an intergovernmental agreement when you don't even meet the requirements?
So Vivek Reddy of the BJP is joining us. Mr. Reddy, let me ask you though about the political optics, as I began by asking Ajay as well. That politically, it certainly is quite a sight to see a defence deal on this scale being scrutinized in this way. And would you say that certainly a lot of questions are now emerging, a lot of people are asking questions which don't really make the government look very good at the moment, to be honest?
Nidhi, let me tell you one thing. Though the Supreme Court has taken this up for in order to find out the specifics of this Rafale contract, it is as it is being argued in the court, contrary to the thinking of the experts in your panel, as it is being argued before the court, I think it is more than clear that government has been able to prove before the court that the pricing, the manner in which the set-offs have taken place, and all other issues over which questions are raised in the petition have been clarified before the Supreme Court very clearly, and it throws light on the fact of various aspects of the deal. For example, a co-panelist was just saying that there is no sovereign guarantee and there is a letter of comfort. Let me tell you, in all such contracts, a sovereign will never stand guarantee. But the state government, the central government has chosen an intergovernmental route in order to exact some sort of guarantees from some sort of, commitments from the French government on the Dassault. This is one. The second issue pertaining to offsets. Let me be very clear. It's been bandied about.
Why should you have some sort of guarantees? It's a 59,000 crore deal. Should it not be fully guaranteed? Yes. Why some sort of guarantees?
Yes. Yes. How can a government stand guarantee? Which government will stand guarantee? This is a contract
what is the procedure, Ajay,
Dassault
in
and
other
the
defense deals?
Indian
Let me ask
government.
Ajay.
Which government will stand guarantee? Is the government the producer? What are we saying? No, one second. Let me just clarify. There is a second
I'm just asking on a point of fact.
Allow me to complete.
I'm coming back to you, Mr. Reddy. I just want to ask Ajay on a point of fact.
No, you have to see. Look here.
One second. Let me just ask him on a point of fact.
Allow me to complete, because
let me just ask him on this point.
We cannot keep jumping on issues.
No, we're not jumping on issues. We are sticking to these issues. What happens?
Allow me to clarify.
Is there a sovereign guarantee?
He is clearly not aware that sovereign guarantees take place all the time in defense
how these
deals.
Things are
it's a function of how badly that country wants the deal.
Isn't it
and in a case like this,
so Mr. Reddy, you're factually incorrect.
To the utmost.
So sovereign guarantees are there in defense deals and they have regularly taken place. So I'm just pointing out about your factual inaccuracy on that particular point. Why is there not a sovereign guarantee in a deal worth 59,000 crores?
Look here. The issues raised by the petitioners, the issues raised all these days are on the pricing and offsets.
No, I'm asking about sovereign guarantee. You don't want to talk about that now?
What is the pricing? What is the offsets?
You don't want to talk about sovereign guarantee now?
The fact is, India is getting this Rafale. Hold on. Even about guarantee, this is the commitment we got. Are we able to read the entire intergovernmental contract? It is not available with us. So why can we speculate? How can we speculate on these things?
See, Mr. Reddy,
you can't randomly launch into a speculative exercise.
You just said
have to go into
that
specifics.
A sovereign guarantee is not something that is always sought, okay, and that we have sort of got a guarantee by getting a letter of comfort. As Ajay has pointed out, that is not the case.
Well, that is not
that sovereign guarantee is got from governments that are serious about getting a deal through. Now, please tell me, why is there not a sovereign guarantee? You don't think it's a mistake? The law ministry raised this red flag. that why is there not a sovereign guarantee? Because
It
this
not
is a risk for
mistake.
India.
1 second. It is not a mistake.
So in a
It is
59,000 crore deal,
have you read the letter of comfort?
what
Have you read the
I
letter
am
of
asking,
comfort?
I know, we
Have
know
you
that
read
the
the
letter of comfort and a sovereign
Please-
guarantee are two
please
different
let me
things.
tell you,
Why did the
don't
law
speculate.
ministry red flag this
is,
issue?
This is too much of a speculation.
It is on
This
record,
is,
sir.
This is too much of a speculation.
Why is it speculation?
Because there is an intergovernmental contract. Have you read this contract?
I'm
Have you
talking
gone
about
through the
what has
details
been
of this
stated
contract
as
and the
fact
dotted
in
lines?
court.
That India.
The Attorney General says there is no sovereign guarantee by France.
See what
The
Nidhi,
law ministry
there
has
is a
red
problem
flagged
here.
that.
There is a problem here. The opposition, the 1 second, the opposition is prone to taking little tidbits of information here and there, and they are trying to magnify this. This is not the approach. In a contract of such a nature, where the government has made all efforts and shown all due diligence and reduced the price of the aircrafts. If you compare Egypt and Qatar, we are getting Rafale at a lesser price.
But you're doing
Egypt
everything but
pays
answering my
293
question.
million apiece.
Why is there
Qatar
not a
pays-
sovereign guarantee for
1
a
second.
59,000 crore
Qatar pays
deal?
246 million apiece. We are paying 243 million
Mr. Reddy,
apiece.
please answer my
Haven't
question.
we bargained?
It's
and
a
we are
kind
getting
request.
offsets for this.
Why is there not a
What more do
sovereign
you want?
guarantee for? I'll keep
Haven't
trying.
we bargained?
Why
We
is
have
there not a
50%
sovereign
offsets.
guarantee for 50
The
or for
money
a
is going to flow
59,000
back
crore
into
deal?
India.
See, we can keep shouting at each other. It doesn't help. I'm asking you a simple question.
Well,
This was an
look
issue
here,
red flagged by
look
the
here,
Law Ministry of
We have
India.
not gone through the dotted lines of the contract, and that
This
is
is
not
what has
material.
been raised in the
That
court.
is not the sole thing here. India has bargained the best price. India
You're not
has
answering the
bargained
question,
best
and
price
frankly, you're
compared
not
to other
answering the
countries.
question. Answers a lot of
What more
questions.
do you want? Even
Right.
letter of
It's
comfort.
not about what
even
I
letter
want.
of comfort. I think the letter of comfort suffices in this circumstance.
A letter of comfort suffices, even though legally it is a
It
document
is
that
not,
is a.
it is not
that-
the only bone of contention as you're raising.
It's not the only bone of contention, but it's significant. It's significant, and that you don't want to talk about it is also significant. I just want to ask Mr. Vikas Singh, who's joining us as well this evening. One second, Mr. Reddy.
Because no, you can't say Dassault will run away. You have other terms of the contract. Those are the guarantees. There are elaborate terms of contract.
He hasn't a clue
It's a
what he's
huge
talking
contract.
about. He hasn't
it
a
covers
clue
all
what he's
guarantees.
talking about.
Dassault is pinned down to these.
Okay, well, now.
Why not? You will not have a clue when it is the truth.
Vikas Singh, Mr. Vikas Singh,
You
know
don't
what
want to hear
the
the truth.
Attorney
That's why you
General,
don't have a
Mr.
clue.
Reddy, one second. The Attorney General said in court today that, asked in court today, should the Supreme Court be looking at this issue at all? That this is something that should actually be looked at by experts. This is an interesting question because we haven't seen the Supreme Court of India get into a defense deal, as we said right at the beginning, between India and another country in this way, in this detail. What are the implications of that, Mr. Singh?
Well, according to me, Nidhi, this is the start of a very, very dangerous trend. According to me, Supreme Court is definitely way overstepping its jurisdiction and getting into whether this aircraft is good enough or not, whether it is fourth generation or third generation, etc. According to me, the only issue, if at all the Supreme Court have ruled on, was that whether the tendering process, as alleged by Prashant Bhushan, that the tendering process was short-circuited by the intergovernmental route without the sovereign guarantee. That is the only issue which they should have gone into, and that's a purely legal issue. If they had felt that the tendering process was flawed because you didn't go for a tender by saying that you are doing the intergovernmental route without a sovereign guarantee, then the deal has to fail if it is flawed on that count. I don't know whether it can be flawed simpliciter on that or not. I am not commenting on that. But to call an IAF officer, ask him, what is the capability of this aircraft, whether it is fourth generation, when was the last purchase made. If this is the way Supreme Court is going to examine defense deals, then tomorrow Supreme Court will say this tank is not good, you should have taken that tank is better, and quash a particular decision taken with regard to a particular defense purchase. I think this is very, very dangerous, and I don't know why Attorney General permitted this to happen. This is something which should not have permitted to be happened in Supreme Court, and the Government of India should have made a huge point on this. Legality is one thing, decision-making process is also another. But to say that the entire deal they will scrutinize is very, very dangerous, and it is starting a very bad trend.
Before I come to Aishwarya and Neerja on this, I want to ask Ajay about what Vikas Singh just said. A dangerous precedent, court overstepping its jurisdiction. Do you agree with that?
The court, let's remember, in dealing with this bunch of petitions, in the initial petition said that it was only going to examine the decision making in process, whether the government went through the right moves before doing the thing. The second time, on 31st of October, when they heard Prashant Bhushan and Arun Shourie and Yashwant Singh's petition, then they expanded it to price and capability as well. And today, most of the arguments that took place on the issue of procedure rather than on price and capability. So I think that the court seems to be aware of what lines it has drawn for itself. This business of calling Indian Air Force officers, I have to say I agree with Vikas that this is probably better not done, especially in the way that it was framed, that we don't want to talk to the Defence Ministry, we want to talk to the Indian Air Force. It raises issues of civil military inter se parity there. So to that extent, no, but yes, I think in itself, given the outrage over the deal, the amount of allegations that are floating around, the Supreme Court, I think, did need to take a look at the decision-making process.
Okay, Aishwarya, let's get the Congress's sort of viewpoint on how things went today.
So I think there were three very crucial things that went down today, three very important questions, which was procedure, price and offset. And today's hearing has revealed more. For example, you realize that they said we went through the best way, but then you realize there's a massive loophole where there is no sovereign guarantee. As much as Vivek would like to say a letter of comfort is fine, no, we are basically putting 59,000 rupees of the public exchequer's money,
59,000 crores.
59,000 crores, sorry, at the mercy of if something goes wrong, that there's nobody to guarantee it. First of all, an IGA is in procedure, you know, in only exceptional circumstances, as Mr. Ajay Shukla also pointed out, none of which have been satisfied in this case. However, more than procedure, the other thing we realized is that offset was a concept that came up, where even though in the public domain you've seen Dassault in its report as well as Reliance speak about it, but the government said we have no details on it. But the one loophole, or rather the one crucial black hole we saw in this, that there was no mention whatsoever of HAL and why it was shoddily dropped at the last moment. Because we see a timeline, we've seen what Mr. Suvarna Raju has said, we've seen when the work share agreement was drawn up, we've seen when Mr. Trappier himself in France had that press conference about 95% of the deal being done. That why at the last moment was somebody allowed to scrap that, especially when the RFP was still open? Why did that happen? I think the one thing I want to say is that the courts at this point, when public interest is large enough, when the exchequer's money and the taxpayers' money is great enough, they've stepped in time and time again in jurisprudence, especially in India, they've stepped in time and time again to scrutinize, and especially with the sort of shroud of mystery and secrecy that you saw from the government,
you feel there's no other way.
Absolutely necessary.
You know, Neerja, a lot of people have argued as this Rafale story has built up over the last few weeks that the Rafale scandal, as it were, doesn't have the same resonance as, say, Bofors did when that happened. Having said that, though, do you see now that this could really damage politically the government's narrative, simply because we are A, in election time, B, the way the Supreme Court has scrutinized this? You know, politics is about perception. People may not understand the A, B and C of an offset clause and you know, a joint venture and so on. But in the perception wars, who's on the front foot and who's on the back foot right now?
I think you're right, it doesn't have the Bofors kind of traction yet. And the Congress allegations itself is about crony capitalism. It is not directly about money that they, you know, there are question marks about the money being paid to Anil Ambani, but the connection between Anil Ambani and the BJP, that money added up to corruption, that has not yet been, allegation has not been made, and the proof is not yet forwarded. So yes, Bofors was slightly different. But having said that, there are just too many questions that have been raised which remain unanswered. And a very simple one is the price of the aircraft. There are no convincing answers to why the price was raised. The government resorted to the argument of secrecy, which Dassault itself has said that the configuration of the planes is the same as the earlier ones. So the government's argument that there were add-ons to it now does not hold. Therefore, what is the explanation? Because Dassault has said that we will have separate agreements on weaponization and arms that will be added to it. So, like that, there are just too many, and many our panelists have talked about, too many questions that hang out there unanswered. And therefore, the politics of it, yes, the Supreme Court has reserved its judgment, and as long as that remains reserved, you know, the pot will be kept boiling. More and more will come on, and it's election season, general elections next year. People may believe it or not believe it, but people are now simply asking these questions: what actually happened, what is wrong in it, and that when that begins to happen, yes, the war of perception is what matters really, and it is the battle of perception that the parties are fighting.
Yes,
Can I come back on this, please?
Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Reddy.
See, I heard what Aishwarya and the Congress other panelists said. Let me just come back on clarifying what they are saying. I think the pot that is boiling is Congress's own pot full of lies. That is the only pot that is boiling today. And more this litigation goes on, this pot full of lies will get exposed. Firstly, the add-ons theory that that madam was trying to put through. Let me tell you, this came up before the Supreme Court hearing today. It was clearly stated by Mr. Venugopal, the learned Attorney General, that this add-on was avionics and weaponry, and therefore your earlier price consisted of a plane which is a pure bone plane, a plain plane without weapons and without avionics. But the price that is now negotiated with Rafale is a plane that is fully loaded with weaponry, possibly even nuclear, we don't know, it is covered under secrecy, and which has avionics and which has stealth capacity, which is 5th generation. Now, if you are going to get such a package, what is the price at which you got this package? Before Qatar is paying for the same package 293 million. Egypt is paying 243 million per piece. India has negotiated and brought it down to 243 million, the least.
Okay, but
and
Mr.
we have got
Reddy,
50% offsets, which means 50% of, one second, let me just complete, Nidhi, please.
Okay.
50% of what is invested comes back to India and it supplies Indian manufacturers. So far as the offsets is concerned.
No. So
out
one
of the 30,000
second, before you
crore
go to
offsets,
offsets, let's stay with
Reliance
add-ons.
Perhaps.
One
second, please don't allow
before
me
you
to
go to
skip.
offsets, because
Please
let's
don't skip.
talk about
Please
it bit
don't
by
skip.
bit.
Nidhi,
On
no.
the question of
No,
add-ons,
no,
Mr.
I will
Reddy,
not
on
come
the
here as a
question of
panelist
add-ons,
if you allow me to
please,
skip.
on this point,
Please.
no, this is not a lecture. 1 second,
Yes,
please
let me just
let's
finish
let's
this.
look at the specific points. Let's not go on
It
for
is
a
like-
tangent.
it is facts.
Can I ask you
It
on
is
the
pure
add-ons?
facts.
What you are saying about it being a bare bones plane is actually what Ajay has contradicted in his reporting in the last
Yes.
1 week, where he has actually pointed out the opposite, Ajay, that actually those add-ons that the government is talking about, that Vivek just mentioned, that increased the price, they were already there. And that there is effectively a 40%, it's 40% more expensive
You know,
per
the
plane now.
Honorable Justice
Let me ask Ajay about
Let me
that.
just, before
Let-
Ajay speaks.
think,
1 second, let him on
Honorable
this
Justices today-
specific point, Mr. Reddy,
No, Honorable
then I'll come
Justices
back to you
today
on offset.
asked-
On this.
See, I think Vivek Reddy
One
is
second,
entitled.
on this
Let him
point
answer
itself,
on-
let me just
let him
finish.
answer on the add-ons,
It is a
please.
5th generation stealth aircraft.
Okay, let him answer. Yeah.
I think Vivek
Yes.
Reddy is entitled to his opinion, but he's not entitled to his own facts. The facts are absolutely clear in the 2007 RFP, which is a document issued by the Indian Air Force.
That's the
which
tender, that's the
the
original.
tender,
Yeah.
which specifically states each dimension of the avionics, every single system that has to be fitted in the plane, the missile approach warning system, electronic warfare system, countermeasures
So it's not a
dispensing
bare plane.
system. Bare, it's not bare, it has the same systems as the 36 Rafales have. The difference is that in the 36 Rafales, those systems, the cost of developing those systems for India is amortized over just 36 aircraft, so it makes it very expensive. In the 126 aircraft deal, the cost was being amortized over a much larger figure, 3 times as many aircraft. So the cost of that India developed systems comes down to 1/3. This is simple mathematics which anyone will understand. So I don't think that there is any merit at all in this thing. This is propaganda. That was a bare bones aircraft, and that was, the Indian Air Force is not dumb to be buying a bare bones aircraft in 2007 and suddenly imbued with wisdom in 2014 when it buys a fully loaded aircraft. The aircraft were the same, the capabilities were the same, it's just that there were much larger number of aircraft then, so the price was much cheaper.
Mr. Reddy, now you can tell us about the offsets.
No, I don't think this this explanation of Ajay answers the situation. I think this is quite misleading, because we have to go by what the Attorney General stated before the court and the note submitted by the central government before the court, when a pointed question was asked before the court as to why there has been this pricing. The Attorney General has said due to weaponry and avionics, and this is the secret part. This is the most important
But why do
and
we have to
vital and
believe that? Why do
confidential
we
part,
have to believe that?
because
Obviously,
our
the government will
surrounding
say
neighbors,
that.
hold
That's
on,
what its
let me just
position
finish.
has been.
Our surrounding neighbors have 400 such stealth aircrafts, and India had to go in for this 5th generation
Our surrounding
modernization
neighbors do
with
not
all
have
the modern
400
weaponry,
stealth aircraft.
which
Where has he
comprises of
got
this
this
weapon,
from? Where is he coming from?
Weapons, avionics and stealth capability. Let me just finish. And all these three are the reasons why the plane costed so much. But when you take the comparative pricing, this is the least that 3 countries have negotiated with India's specific amendments. So what
Okay.
have you got to say, Ajay? If Egypt pays 246 million and we pay 243 million per
Well,
piece,
as-
He
for the
has
same
no
stealth
idea
capability.
of the Egypt
So
contract.
therefore-
The Egypt contract
therefore-
includes a warship in the contract. Does he know that? Does he know that? Ask him.
We also have 35 Jaguars in our contract. Please,
We
there
have
are so many
35
add-ons.
Jaguars in our
It
contract.
is
You
not
don't know what you're
just the
talking
plane with
about.
weaponization.
You
All
don't
right,
know
There
what
are
you're
unlawful
talking
I
about.
am very sad to have to end this,
You please know,
end
you know
this
what you're
fascinating
talking
conversation
about.
because I do
This
have
is
to.
very, I'm sorry,
So,
Mr. Ajay.
I will see
this
you
is
all
not the
again
way
very
you
soon.
try to
Thank you
mislead
for
the nation.
joining us. I have to take a break. Thank you for joining us. Like I said, very sorry to have ended this fascinating conversation. See you all again tomorrow. Good night.